So with our positive attitude established, we can now look at how the rapport wheel works. Now it starts, as you can see here, with a received communication. And by that, we mean communication that's been received by the other party. If you remember the communication matrix, it will look something like this. You've sent the information, and the other party has received it. Thus, a received communication. So with received communication, it can be things like thoughts, feelings, ideas, concepts, facts and figures that you've sent to the other person. It can be delivered as verbal spoken words. It can be delivered through body language. It can be delivered in writing. In fact, every conceivable method of communication between one human being and another, or a group of others, can be considered in this received communication section. Actually, when we consider how much of our communication is non-verbal, it's amazing to think of how much we're probably saying to each other without even realizing it. If you've got your arms crossed or back here, if you're saying phrases like that as opposed to being open, we are communicating feelings, thoughts and thought processes to other people without them realizing, and more important, without us realizing that we're actually aware of what we're doing. So it's really important to be aware of our body language so that we know what we're communicating. So importantly, this tells us another reason to have a positive attitude. Because if we have an overwhelmingly positive attitude towards the person we're talking to, towards communication, our body language will automatically frame itself in the positive. This will give us positive body language without us having to worry about our physical movements. Because if our attitude is right, our body language will be right, our communication will be right, and everything becomes easier, as opposed to having to pretend of what you're communicating. This is why attitude is such a key part of everything we talk about. So once we've made a communication that's been received, we can move on to the next stage in the rapport wheel, which is understanding and comprehension. This is where, because you've sent the communication correctly, if you remember the communication matrix, the other person has had the opportunity to have space and time to understand and comprehend what it is you've said. So at this point, it's worth mentioning that it's important to make sure that the other person understands and comprehends what it is you've communicated with them. So how can you make sure that that person has understood and comprehended you? What can you do? So before we do that, we think about how are we, when we don't understand what's being said to us. How do you react when somebody says something to you that you don't understand? Generally, there are two types of reactions to this situation. Firstly, there are the people who won't say anything and will just let you continue talking because they don't wish to appear ignorant. These are the kids at school who just said nothing when the teacher was talking and let the class get away from them. And then there are the other people that will pipe up and question, say, I'm sorry, I don't understand you, what are you saying? The reality is there are far more people that will say nothing because they don't want to appear ignorant than those that will pipe up and say, I don't understand you. If you are going to be a responsible communicator, and if you're going to take responsibility for your part in building rapport and growing relationships, then realize that most people won't say anything to you if they don't understand what you're saying. So rather than waiting for them to ask you for clarification, you've got to seek clarification from them. You've got to go looking for it. You have to take responsibility and make sure that what you've communicated has been understood and comprehended. And this is a key aspect to building quality relationships and rapport quickly. So there is a method by which you can do this effectively and quickly. And again, we refer back to the communication matrix. You'll see that once they've understood and comprehended, you're looking for that acknowledgement. So the method that you need to think about and use is about acknowledgements. So firstly, you have to watch for visual acknowledgements. That can be the nodding of the head. So as you're talking, the person is nodding either in agreement or understanding. That's a visual acknowledgement. Secondly, you have to look for audio acknowledgement. That can be something such as uh-huh or mm-hmm, or even words such as okay, I see what you're saying, or I understand, or just the word okay, I get it. Thirdly, if you haven't seen or heard either a visual or heard an acknowledgement as an uh-huh, then what you need to do is ask for clarification. You need to ask them certain questions to see if they've understood. Questions like, does that make sense? Do you see what I mean there? What do you think of that? Does that make sense? Those sort of things will work for you. That's going to seek clarification for acknowledgement.